These are the three biggest downsides to buying cheap car insurance. The first is the coverage that you get. Everyone says comprehensive coverage, but that's actually a coverage in your policy. So we'll break it up and say that you're broadened. Oh man, if you're in Michigan, that's a coverage. So your comprehensive broadened altogether package is the policies you get in a lot of these cheaper companies are excluding things. So that's one of the reasons that they're getting a cheaper deal. And that goes true for your home insurance as well, where a lot of these things, they're pulling off coverages just to make it cheap. For example, a lot of the times you're raising your deductibles. You can do that with any company and it does make it cheaper, but that's not necessarily going to be the best benefit for you, especially if you have a claim. If you have a $1,000 deductible, can you pay $1,000 out of pocket if you had a claim today? If not, you may want to debate paying $20 extra a month for that policy because it is something that you have to build up to. Until you can build the savings bank of $1,000, then you probably shouldn't have a $1,000 deductible. Not having towing and road service, those are extra coverages, but for the person that needs it and you have one car in the household, you may need to rent a car. And paying $60 a day for your claim to go processed, which we'll talk about that in a second, is going to cost you hundreds, if not $1,000+ on there. So you have a $1,000 deductible, you're paying $1,000 for a rental car, and you're getting in trouble at work because you didn't show up. So you've got several $1,000s worth of out-pocketing in a claim because you had a cheap policy. And yeah, that's more of a cheap coverage than it is a cheap policy, but that's what they default to. A lot of your cheaper companies, call a 1-800-ANYTHING, at least in insurance world, or go to any app. You've seen me do several of them on this channel. They default to the lowest basic policy 9 times out of 10 because they know that's how they're gonna win. They didn't build a rapport. They didn't build a relationship. They didn't get on the phone with you like an agency would and explain the coverages and make sure they understand your situation. They just want you to buy a policy, which is fine. There's just a transaction, but they know that, so they're gonna go cheap. They're gonna go the cheapest bottom dollar they can get, which means pull everything off. Here's your car insurance, here's your liability, here's your state minimums. Do you want better? No? Great, here's what the price is. And you don't know any different. You've bought the cheapest thing you can find, which means you're going to pay thousands of dollars in the event of a claim. By the way, if you are looking for not cheap and you're trying to deal with an agent and what we just mentioned there, I'll put a link in the description below where you can get an independent agent that shops multiple companies. So you don't have to make 10, 15 different phone calls. You just got one person that can do it for you. The second piece follows the first. As we talked about the renting a car, the length of renting a car expands with more of your cheaper policies. The reason being is the claims handling time is a lot worse. How do you think they got cheaper? They cut out a lot of the things that you would expect to be as part of a company. That customer service level isn't going to be as high in most cases. We'll use Progressive as an example. One of the biggest, largest insurance companies in the nation, and they've been doing great. They're actually A+ rated. They've got the really good coverage. They'll let you choose your own price. You can buy it from an agent. You can buy it online. They just want to meet you where you want to be. They'll even give you that Name My Price tool and go cheap if you want. So there's all of these things that Progressive does that sounds amazing. They do exclude certain situations, so you have to be very careful there. But also, they've gone down in customer service. Why is that? They were a great company because too many people join them. When everybody sees that cheap deal, give me the iPhone for half off, and they come buying in the door, there's not enough people to slow or stop and say, wait a minute, we can't handle all this. Let me try to hire, let me try to hire. And then you get all these new people once in a while. It's a call center, you're getting 1-800 this, 1-800 that, and half the people are really good at their job and half the people are learning their job, and there's just all of this chaos where there are things in place. That's one of the reasons they're still really good, is because they've put things in place to oversee and protect that part, but there are little things that slip through those cracks, and you've got to be mindful that's what you're purchasing when you go with the cheapest policy. One of the reasons most people go to a Progressive agent is because they get that knowledge, they get that experience. They're going to one person and they're usually paying the same price, if not cheaper. Sometimes it's less if you go through an agent. Having that local agent sometimes is a better deal to go with companies like that. Now, Geico's the opposite. They don't have agents. So you just go online, they default the coverage to whatever they showed you. They give you a couple options, you buy it, and same scenario. You're calling the 800 number and they're trying to backfill all of the things like that. They're usually a little bit better of a fit for like your young driver or your high risk driver. So claims handling is a lot longer with your cheaper insurance companies. It's the same as buying the old iPhone versus the new iPhone. It's a faster processor. That's why you buy the new iPhone, is you want the speed, you want the save my time, get me in here, let me save a couple dollars on checking my latest post and things like that, better camera, all of those features that you want to pay for. If you're going to buy last year's or even the year before iPhone, then you're not going to get that same experience that everybody's talking about with the new iPhone. That's the same as insurance. You're buying a cheaper product, you're not going to get that quality most of the time. Don't get me wrong, every once in a while a company pops up and does really good, and then they grow. That's where a Progressive started. That's where an Allstate started. That's where a State Farm started. That's where a lot of these companies that we're seeing that are huge today is they started with great service, great products, and they just found a way to amplify it, grow it, and market it as what they are today. The third and probably one of the larger downsides of buying cheap car insurance is you go to a new policy, you're always going to pay that cheap price plus a percentage. So there's always inflation. There's always an increase. A lot of times there's a new customer discount, probably almost every time, and that falls off over 3 years on most companies. And so you're always going to have that price creep up and creep up. The downfall to that is you're not going to get those loyalty discounts. You're not going to get those claims-free discounts to where, yeah, you paid more right now for that better quality product, but you don't get those discounts that save you later on. So you're almost paying more for the cheaper deal. Not only that, you don't have the coverage that you wanted. If you got tricked into buying a policy, we'll say tricked, not a right way to say that without getting sued. So let's just use an example. If an agent sold you a cheaper policy and it was because they lowered your coverage and you just thought, oh, the risk just changed, so that was better. I've talked about this in the last couple of videos. The renewal will go up. It's a weird thing because insurance looks at the history. They care about the history because that's where all their data comes from. So if you had a high coverage and you went with the lower coverage, you got a deal. You got a cheaper policy. But when you renew, that lower coverage is still a lower coverage. And if you renew at a lower coverage, well, that's a different risk. That was not a high to low risk. Let's give them a deal. High risk, low payout to a high risk, low payout. There's a surcharge for that because you're just carrying basics. Now, not every company is going to see it that way, but I would fair to say the majority of your larger companies are going to look at that type of risk and say, that is where it's at. And then if you want to go back, guess what? You got to pay that up premium because now you're raising those coverages to a higher limit. And the obvious thing is if you ever talk to an agent, they're going to tell you the secret and the truth that you should hear is, what is it going to cost you in a claim? So saving $50 a month or $100 a month or whatever the deal is, how much will that cost you if you have an accident? It's the risk. You get to choose whether you take that. That's the beauty of that part of it, is if you're okay with that risk, by all means, grab it. If you're the type of person that wants to know you're covered and not have to worry about it later, work with the agent that you want to work with, get the policy the way that you want, pay the premium you want, and unfortunately, it'll probably go up a little bit over the next year, but at least get to the level that you need to be. If you are curious and just kind of lost on the coverage part of it, that's kind of the most confusing piece, I'll link a car insurance 101 video that'll go more into depth. If you're like, nah, Mark, I'm good, I just want to know about how to get cheaper, I'll put a car insurance discount video here. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.